Hello, my name is Tylluan. I'm a solitary pagan witch. I'm an author and I founded the Wolf and Howl Press. Today's little chat is an introduction to divination. Now, what is divination? Well, basically divination is the use of various tools which are intended to give us a glimpse into the future, either our own future or somebody else's. There are many different ways of doing this, and in my lifetime I've tried a lot of them, I can tell you. But ultimately, I think the important thing to realise is you have to find what works for you. For example, when I was young, I started off, the very first form of divination I ever did was palm reading. I used to read palms. I really enjoyed it. It was great fun. But then I moved on and somebody said, why don't you try tarot? Tarot is really good. And I did do it for a while, but I have to be honest, I found it didn't quite suit me. Try and come back to that in a minute, why. I've done, excuse the noise. Wait a minute. Honestly, if it's not the clock going off at all hours, it's this. We have large bulldozers in the street outside. They're digging a big hole. Every few months they come along and dig the road up. So I was talking about the tarot. Yes, I discovered the tarot. I tried it for quite a while, a couple of years I think it was. And decided, no, it wasn't for me. I have used a crystal ball. I quite like the crystal ball. But again, I felt maybe there was a different way of doing it. And in the end, I settled on the one that I feel still works for me best at the moment, and that is the runes. But there are all sorts of ways of doing divination. And all I'm talking about today is not how to do it as such, but how to find and explore the different methods. Firstly, I think don't be afraid to try different things. You know, you can always get books on the library on palm reading or what have you, and that's fine. Give it a go, give it a try. This comes back to what I said about keeping a magical journal. You do need to keep records of what you do in the early days. Did it work? Was this particular reading helpful? And another thing I think you have to remember is that we have become, I think, much kinder with divination than we used to be. I can always remember a story my father told me, and it must have happened a very long time ago, where he and his friend went to see a fortune teller, and the fortune teller told his friend that he was going to die an uncanny death. Now, personally, I would never, ever, even if I thought I saw it in the reading, I would never, ever tell somebody something like that. And the next bit of the story will explain to you why. Because this friend of my father's, it preyed on his mind. It became something, as he grew older, it became something, because they were only boys when they went for this, and it became something that really bothered him. What sort of uncanny death? Where would it be an uncanny death? And what happened in the end was he threw himself off Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol, and he committed suicide. Now, you could say that was the fortune teller's fault entirely. She told her reading to somebody who emotionally, mentally, what have you, was not able to cope with that kind of information, and therefore it became a self-fulfilling prophecy and not really true divination at all. Well, yes, but the second part of the story is that she also made a reading for my father. And she told my father he would have a very disfiguring accident to the left side of his face. Now, that is not the sort of thing really that preys upon your mind. You might think, young men years ago were called up to war, but this was in the period between the First War and the Second World War. So there wasn't really any sort of possibility that in the near future he was going to be called up. And yet, just after my father's 18th birthday, 2 days after his birthday, and on the morning of his own father's funeral, there was an explosion in the fire in the living room, my father's home. And my father was sitting down, sideways onto the fire, eating his breakfast, getting ready to go to his father's funeral. So you can imagine, very emotional. And this explosion hit him full in the left side of his face, and he lost his eye. Now, that was a pretty accurate piece of information that came from the fortune teller. My father certainly never forgot it. So was she accurate? Was it a case that his friend killed himself because of what she told him, or was it that she was telling him he would kill himself because he would anyway? Who knows? We don't know these things. But the point is, what I'm trying to say about divination is you really do have to get it in perspective. Whether you're doing it for yourself, whether you're doing it for somebody else, it is not telling you the future written in stone. All right? In spite of that particular experience that my father had, I don't believe that divination is written in stone. What divination does is it presents you with patterns. It presents you with a series of choices. It presents you with the overarching themes, the tropes, if you like, that are present in your life at the moment. And if certain things happen, it becomes cause and effect. If certain things happen, then certain other things might happen. And returning to my father's accident, the reason there was an explosion in the fire was because his father, who had just passed, his father was very fond of going shooting. And there had been a gun cartridge, shotgun cartridge, left in one of the drawers. His auntie had come over for the funeral, said, "Oh, I'll help you," threw the contents of the drawer onto the fire, and boom, it went up. So you can say there was cause and effect. I don't say my father could have done anything about it, but there are certain things in place in our lives, you know, like Shakespeare says, isn't it? There is a tide in the affairs of man. And he goes on to explain how, you know, if we seize the tide, if we sail with the tide, it leads on to greatness. And if we miss the tide, well then, we've had it. And this is what divination is really about. It's about learning what are the themes, where are the tides, when do we need to take the tide, when do we need to seize our opportunity. Carpe diem, seize the day. You know, all these things in life, it's not, when you do divination, it's not about what does this card, what does this rune mean? It's about what does the pattern show me? What is the theme that I'm seeing here? One of the things you find with divination, give you a heads up now, is that if you keep asking the same question in roundabout ways, the cards, the runes, whatever you're using, will get a bit miffed, a bit angry. They will start throwing up the same answers time and again. You'll get the same rune come up 3 times on the trot, one after another. And it will get quite, you can actually tell when this happens that the whole, the whole feeling of the readings changes. And whatever it is behind these readings, whatever power exists that makes divination work, it starts to get quite annoyed, quite fed up with being asked the same thing over and over. Because again, this is something you find with divination, that you do get people who will keep on and on and on asking the same questions over and over, or they'll rephrase them slightly, which is almost the same thing. And you do have to be careful of this, because it's not good for your mental health to keep dealing with that. And sooner or later, the runes, the tarot, the crystal ball will get really annoyed. And this is why you have to be sensible. Don't do readings, don't do divination when you're tired. Don't do it when you're ill. Don't do it when there's a thunderstorm in progress, because the energies that are around during storms tend to disrupt what you're doing anyway. Have a bit of sense. and hopefully I will add some more videos to this to give you a little more generalised advice on the different types of divination and how we do them. But I hope that's good to be going on with. And thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.